Hi, welcome to Adjuster Hour. Let's see, let's go ahead and get on, make sure everyone has a chance to hop on. This Adjuster Hour is brought to you by Adjuster Pro. No, I'm kidding. I don't know if I can say that, but you can save 10% with Adjuster Pro online. So, Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm sure you've seen a couple of the episodes. What we do here at Adjuster Hour is we try to motivate the insurance industry, try to get them thinking positive, looking at all the aspects that is in such a complicated world. We just try to make it fun, try to make it simple, and invite guests like you on the show to talk about what they do. So, with that being said, Anthony, can you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes. First and foremost, thank you for having me on tonight.
Yeah.
I guess this is a good way to break the nerves and get jumping right into it. My name is Anthony Hynes. I've been in this industry for about going on, I guess, 10 years. And my company is Fusion Claims Consultants. We focus on process for contractors when it comes to storm related projects. Um, I, I think I love this industry more and more that it gets challenging because it just gives us more solutions to have to come up with and more problems that
Absolutely.
are just going to come in.
Oh, absolutely. I want to pause real quick and let you know that you have a viewer from Australia, from France,
Oh,
Miss France. French. I always say her name wrong. She's gonna kill me. She was on our show a couple episodes ago. So thanks for tuning in. It's actually like 8:30 in the morning by her.
it's
But
awesome.
yeah. So Anthony, what made you get started in this and in the insurance industry at all? What brought you over to us?
Actually, by mistake, I was a manufacturer sales rep for just for about a year and a half, and during that period of time, we were getting to a slow season, and I started just networking. And it was actually my one of my buddies at the time. I said, "Hey, I'm looking for something different." He said, "Hey, how about getting into the roofing business?" I'm like, I'm not getting on a roof and doing roofing." He was like, "Nah, it's a little bit different." So I went and became a sales manager for a period of time. Well, I was training to become a sales manager, getting up on the roofs and getting the shaky legs and getting all nervous. But
Mm-hmm.
my first adjuster meet was actually with USAA, and a guy that fell started falling off the roof and lost skin from like here to here. And I thought I'd never get up on a roof again. But,
Oh my gosh.
the interactions with that adjuster and a few other in the field, I really started enjoying just that, you get up there and you're working together to figure out, is there damage and what's the extent of that damage. And
It's
after
addicting.
coaching, well, after coaching 13-year-olds in basketball and rupturing my Achilles, I found myself
Mhm.
handling the administrative duties and supplementing and building estimates. And I fell in love with it from there.
What program did you guys use, by the way, when you were doing those estimates?
So it's always been Xactimate. I know
Okay.
Symbolity's out there. I've always just appreciated what Xactimate has, the simplicity with it. Even from the sketching standpoint, that's fun. Once in a while, just jumping in and trying to sketch a house that I always mess up. But it's really just a neat program to see that it's constantly being updated. There's
Mhm.
line items in there. De-icing cables is a common one in certain markets that every once in a while I see on Facebook. Somebody's like, "Hey, how do you find these cables?" And I get excited when I can share line items that, hey, I know where it's at.
Yeah. I've always enjoyed the estimating part, like portion of the claim, because it's like building a puzzle for me. So not only the roof, drawing the roof, I feel like that's basic. You start there. Everyone kind of starts there with the roof claims, but fire losses, those are my bread and butter. And total fire losses, having to rebuild the whole either home structure, building from scratch. That's always been something that I've enjoyed. And again, that sounds a little sick.
No, I get
Think
it's
about it,
like
it's a
playing
little
it.
sick. But
Yeah.
Right? It is. It's like it's a puzzle. You have to put it back together. And to me, the writing code, I memorize all code. So I've talked about this before, but writing the codes and then just typing them out, it just brings back memories. So I can see why you fell in love with it, because that's partly why I fell in love with adjusting. I mean, one of the reasons. But okay, so once you got started in it, doing the supplements, tell me about kind of what happened next.
So you know, it was kind of like I was thrown into the fire, and probably the first ever call I made out to the insurance company. The adjuster was probably like, "What is this guy doing?" All I did was ask a lot of questions. Hey, how do you need it? What do you need? How do you like? Just just going along that process, and I found myself really just I ended up on forums and googling things, and I mean I guess that was the time where Zoom wasn't as common. So I learned there was a girl, her name was Bree. She lived out of Pennsylvania. She was like head of a contracting company, and she taught me virtually how to understand codes and how to understand that, hey, you got to write for what's there. You can only write
Yeah.
for what's there. Don't write for anything more. And it is like playing a video game to me,
Mhm.
being in there and looking at pictures and a property and say, how did nobody see this? This is important. This was there. Um, so just jumping in and meeting adjusters and understand, even getting yelled at by the adjusters. You didn't send me things, and it's like, all right, I didn't know any better. What do you need? It's like, oh,
Yep.
A, B, and C. Okay, and then I
It's a
got to
learning
yell at
curve.
our guys in the office.
Yeah. It's definitely a learning curve. So, all right, so you started on your love for supplements, and then you branched out a little bit, right? You took it out, you took it on your own and you made something of it.
Yeah, it's a guy I'm still friends with today. He's out in Texas. Um, we met through like some sports chat, and I realized he had something with roofing, and we started talking about roofing codes and weather. Because at that point I had no clue. I was ignorant to the fact that Texas gets hailstorms like every week, kind of
Yeah.
during storm season. And after talking with him about it, he was like, "Man, you could really help a lot of contractors." And that was like the light bulb moment. I was
Mhm.
like, "Yeah, one of the things I really enjoy just as a human is being able to help a large amount of people."
Yeah.
Um, and falling into the realm of hey, I could help out more contractors, but I needed a system that worked that way. And everything was done on Excel. Like I started this whole process focused on Excel of color coding. Yellow was follow up, green was, good, purple was there was a code issue. I can't remember all the colors that I had. I had like some off orange, which was like, hey, it's in follow up, but there's a problem with it. We're needing information. And I took that because I'm not a super organized person. My
Mhm.
wife, she has our calendar up on a wall. I'm not that organized, but I wanted to focus on building a process and a system for people like me that's not that organized to be able to like be there for people that are organized and need it in a specific way. So that's just where I ran with it, and went from a spreadsheet to now I have a custom built CRM and process that I get to keep and own my build, which is awesome.
That is awesome. So are you the sole owner of Fusion Claims?
I'm the majority owner. I do have
Majority owner.
a business partner who that's a side story, but I run a flag football league, and I met him. He was a coach,
Hmm.
and I was looking after I left a former partnership. I wanted to expand in a way and really focus on my system. And so I went to him and said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming in as a partner?" And a few months later, he
Yeah.
came in, and that changed everything for me. It was able to complete what I wanted to build, and while everybody was out focusing on sales and marketing, I was focused on fine tuning my mousetrap don't know if that was the wisest idea or not, but that I
Yeah,
loved every part of it.
you had more of an entrepreneur's brain, and you saw something that you could bridge the gap, and you decided I can do more with this, and you went with it. I think that's great. I feel like I'm very similar in my personality. There's something I want and I see, and I have that brain where I'm like, okay, let's connect the dots. How can we get to that point? How can we bridge the gap? So I will tell you, your LinkedIn is pretty impressive. Your tagline is, I would say your tagline is a mouthful. I don't know if I can say the whole thing, but transforming storm project operations with 15,000 successes. Can you talk about that real quick? Because 15,000 is a pretty big number in my book.
Yeah. My first year as a solo artist, I guess, being out with the business, my business partner and I at the time, we're like, man, we're gonna go find all these contractors. We're gonna make all this money. We're gonna do all these great things,
Yeah.
and just like they say, everybody's got a plan until they got punched in the mouth. And I mean, the first year we serviced just under 2,000 claims. I mean, we got hit with the largest nor'easter out on the East Coast here while we were in Vegas at our first trade show. We had no clue what we were doing. Showed
Mhm.
up with tight, my shirt was all tight, and uh, I felt like a fool. But we came out there aggressive. Hey, this is
Mhm.
our turnaround time. This is how we do things, and we had more business than we knew what to do with. And so from there, each year we grew probably another 50%, and just was able to find through networking, through manufacturers and distributors, people that had contractors that had problems, right? They didn't
Yeah.
understand the processes, they didn't understand, the paperwork, or they wanted to clean up their processes, and they had a good system. And just year over year, we just compiled, thousands of claims. And the the thing that probably triggers the growth and the ability to service those many files over the time period is just consistency, right?
Mhm.
It's
Yep.
not, we weren't for every client, and every client wasn't for us. And we've learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
But, our focus has been volume, right? We want to be able to help. The more volume we receive, the more we can make an impact. So that's always been my goal. It's not about how much money we can make off it. It's how much of an impact can we make with our process. And it's just, I think I'm a few hundred claims away from reaching 20,000 in my
Oh
in my
wow.
career.
Well,
So,
you can update your LinkedIn header.
yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to update it soon. I thought about having like a live count every so often. I'm like, that's just too much work, and I'll forget about
Yeah.
what I was doing.
Yeah. I like where your head's at though. I love that. You have to see where you've been to know where you're going, and to see that have those little reminders. I mean, it's a big reminder. That's a lot of claims. But seeing your success, I feel like it projects the growth and gets you, okay, this is everything I've done. It's motivating to see that. So I love that you have that on your, and I was just giving you, crap about it because I think it's really cool. And so, and let's break it down a little bit more. So leading contractor growth at Fusion Claims. So who is your who is your best customer? What do they look like?
Committed to the consistency, right?
Mhm.
What I have found, there are a lot of similar entities that offer similar services. And there's some companies out there do some great work, and there's some companies out there that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. And where it just really breaks down, I actually had a meeting this morning with a friend here in town, and he's got a company that helps you get to market on a larger scale. And we were talking about just commitment. And when somebody says, hey, if you do these 10 things, you're going to get this result.
Mhm.
And people will do 8 and then complain that they didn't get that result. And it's like, well, You get out what you put in. It's just like going to the gym. It's just like anything else you do. And so our best clients just commit. They commit to something, they try it out, and the ones that have committed and tried it out, they have had the most success. And again, it's not about how much money we make them. It's really how much time we give them back. I will share that one of the most impacting stories I got was one of our it's former client. This was probably, 30 days in. He had said one night came out of his office and one of the guys was just sitting there, blank stare at a screen. He was like, "Hey man, what's going on?" He's like, "I don't know. Usually I'm here writing estimates and emails to adjusters late at night, after he's been out on the road all day, meeting with homeowners and adjusters." And he's like, "All right, what's the problem?" He's like, "Well, now since we've been with Fusion, I have nothing to do." He was like, "Go home, man. Be with your kids. Go to
Wow.
your kids' practice." And to me, that like struck a nerve for me. Like, whoa, if we do it on this side, can we do the same thing and apply that on the adjuster side, right? The people that we work with, no matter which side we're talking to, whether it's the contractors or the adjusters, it's the same goal. We want everybody when they work with us to have that like sigh of relief, like, hey, at least this will be smooth because we're not about forcing something in and getting the answer we want. The answer we want is the answer it's going to be, right? We don't dictate that. We just take information, give it over here, let this person review, let them do their job, and then we bring it back and say, "Hey, this is where it's at." There's no we don't negotiate. We don't sit there and try to fight for policy and discuss things that's outside of our compliance.
Hmm.
So, for contractors, I'd say the wish, if I had like a little genie lamp, it's just give it a chance. What's the worst that's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
That's really what it is. That's a great question.
No, yeah, I love that. And okay, so your tagline is absolutely we're on it. And so that tells me that no matter what, like the impression I get is no matter what I throw at you to get done, you got it done. You'll get it done. So tell me a little bit about that mentality and how it's made you successful.
So how we even came up with that is I was obsessed with I grew up I went through McDonald's corporate training young in high school. Probably, I think I worked there for about 2.5 years throughout high school, and I enjoyed it.
Hmm.
And I still one of the things that sticks in my head: if you got time to lean, you got time to clean, and that meant that mentality has always stuck with me. And
That's
Chick
the
Fil
first
A,
time I've ever heard that. So
yeah. So
I'm
you
gonna
don't, you
write
won't
that
get me
down.
caught leaning in an area where there's something to clean. I learned
Oh
that the
my
hard
gosh.
way. And it's that that is saying, hey, if somebody walks in and see
Hmm.
you leaning or see you not,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
not doing something, you could just be walking around the circle and they won't pay attention. So it's the same thing with what I wanted here. And Chick-fil-A has dominated the fast food market and they're open one day less. And it really comes down to connection, right?
Hmm.
When you go to Chick-fil-A, what do they say? They make eye contact. Can I get a name for the order? Welcome. Then you pass there, you go to the next person. They're like, "Oh, Anthony, hey, here's your receipt." Next window, "Hey, order for Anthony," and you're smiling, driving off of your bag. McDonald's, it's like you're inspecting the bag. You're like, "Wait a
Yeah.
second, did you give me sauce, nuggets?" So Chick Fil A, that connection. So and they have their their little ethos, their tagline. And I was like, well, we need something for ourselves. Like, what would represent our mentality? Because our
Yeah.
mentality should absolutely be, hey, absolutely, we're on it. Contractor needs us to help them with something, absolutely, we're on it. The carrier asked us to get something, absolutely, we're on it. If we have a different approach to that, then we're not serving we're not serving everybody equally. So that's really where we wanted to fit that into our
Hmm.
signature line.
I love that, and I do. I am a sucker for Chick-fil-A, but their process, they have that process down to a T. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's the same thing every single time, and it works. And they serve so many customers, and so your your business plan has to have some type of process to be able to handle volume. How did you come up with that process?
Trial and error. That's just the truth. I mean,
Mm,
some folks have gotten their hands dirty with different projects and different things that they work on. I've been on well over probably 100 plus roofs to realize I never want to go on a roof. If it's a single story, 612 and under, I'll get up there. But anything over than that, I've had my shaky days of being up there and saying, no, it's not for me. Um,
and that's
but it's
okay.
really trial and error, just learning what not to do. And, you know, accountability is a huge thing. So our dashboard really keeps us all accountable, especially me. Like I I want everybody that we work with to know where things are at and be able to have full transparency of what we do and how we do it. I've had many people, employees and former clients and friends always ask me, aren't you worried somebody's, with how much you reveal in your system that somebody's just going to copy it? And I go off something I've followed for a long time. I had an English teacher 3 times. Her name was Miss Hartshorn. She was probably my favorite teacher of all time. Only teacher that really sent me a letter that like congratulate me on my sister being born. And she had a poster on the wall that it said, "Be yourself. An original is always worth more than a copy." So for me, it's like,
Mhm.
go ahead, copy all you want. You will never get the whole piece together. So I mean that's I think in any industry you have people copycat and things that want to get done. I am more of the person that wants to do the thing that people are like, no, don't do that, or hey, no, that's too hard. It's like, oh crap. Now that
We're
it's
a lot
hard and it's a
alike.
challenge, I'm gonna go try it.
Yeah, everything that you're saying, literally, it goes through my brain. I think I love that saying from your English teacher. I love that. Be yourself. It's the original, don't be a copy, be original. And I feel like I myself strive to do that because there's so many talk show. I don't know which one to call this, talk show, podcast. Maybe that's the same thing. But I'm just the original version, and you can copy all you want. No one's getting that. So I have that same mentality. So I love that. And I love that you are transparent with your team because that's huge. How can you lead a team if they don't know where they're going? You know? Speaking of leaders, okay. Last bit of your headline I do want to touch on because it did get me intrigued. Empowering future leaders through UTL flag football. So I know it's kind of off topic, but I really was curious because it made it to your headline. So I feel like we have to dig a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah. So at the same time, I was the smart guy that thought it was a bright idea to start 2 businesses at the same time in completely different industries. And so I started running a flag football league
Mhm.
through Under the Lights Flag Football at the same, like I said, about 10 years ago. And it was originally I coached a co-ed team, and they were great, but in the league that we played in, it was done. There was no more. So I was looking for a new league or a new tournament to put the team in. And at the time, one of the owners of the company said, "Hey, do you want to start a flag football league?" And I was like, I don't have $30,000 to franchise some, and they're like,
Yeah,
no, you need $500 and you need to be able to market. And I'm like, oh,
for
okay.
sure. Yeah.
So, our first year we had 144 athletes in our league, and we just finished a spring season with one of the largest operations in the country with 1,056 athletes. We
Oh my
opened up the
gosh.
all girls, we had the pre-K, and you know, when I say the future leaders, one of the things that I love about what we've done with our team, I'd say most of the staff members I coached or are family friends or
Mhm.
family. My father, my father-in-law have been doing my field setup since the beginning. Um, And, one of the things that we've done with, I'd say probably more than 50% of our referees are former athletes within our league.
Oh,
And, we have coaches that have started their own, sports businesses. It's awesome. Like nothing like starting something with the intent to have a fun opportunity to
yeah.
it blew up to, another business that I was like, holy crap, I didn't expect this, but I love it. And it's been a massive thing for our community. And, I think the more we can have organic growth
Hmm.
and really empower the youth to become the future leaders, I think it goes along with a quote I heard a while back. And I was just telling my oldest son today that there's a quote that was, we are teaching our kids are constantly learning for things or being taught things that are not yet available. Like they're getting taught the
Hmm.
future that doesn't exist. And we lose that as we get older. You see people that are like, oh, I'm going to stick with a flip phone or a flip phone. You're like, well, hate to break it to you, but nobody has flip phones anymore. You got to log in with a digital keypad when you go to the doctors. All those
Yeah.
advancements. And I think it's important for us to help our youth understand where they're going, but also as adults and as seniors, work together to say, hey, each of us have our learning curves. If we work together, we can help each other.
That's a good point. I love that. I love that. So we know how you're creating winners on the field. What about within your organization? How are you creating winners and leaders within your organization?
I will say this past year definitely experienced a lot of wild things. Being able to work with one of the largest roofers and um, building a team that our expectation was just to come in and complete a task. And the team that we had was exceeding that. And the group of people that we had and have were just different than I've ever experienced. And, I witnessed things in a professional environment that, I can't take credit for the culture and why they did it, but we were able to build an environment where everybody jumped in and helped each other. By the time I thought about, hey, we got to ask this person or this team to go help this team, it was already done. And I'm like, well, I still to this day I ask why, like why were they so willing to do so? And I think it comes down to a shared passion and understanding. It's kind of like Simon Sinek's like start with the why. And at the end of the day, what we do think makes impacts in each other's lives. I wish I could give to our team members what they gave to, this company and what
Hmm.
our results of a journey that we did not know how it was going to go. And like I said, there's been some bumpy rides, but resilience and I think resilience in people is still alive. And I think that's important.
I love that. Yeah, you have to have resilience in life in general, especially in the times that we live in. We won't get into that. That's a whole nother show. But yes, you need to be resilient. But I don't want to interrupt you, but we do have a question from the audience. What about AI? So, what about AI? Are you using that? Can you reveal if you're using that, and how are you using it?
It's a great question. So I I will start with we implemented ChatGPT for specific reasons, and it's not to um, it's not to get claim answers or to put clean data in there and try to
Mhm.
find a curve. It was actually to communicate effectively. So I built a claim response prompt, and it's surrounded by rules, right? We don't discuss policy. We don't discuss, um, that it has limitations, right? We don't
Yeah.
negotiate all those things. But it also is about treating that person on the other side like we'd be speaking to our best friend or spouse, anybody. And it's interesting because utilizing that, we had a job in Georgia. One of our team members, she shared on one of our team meetings. She's like, "I want to share something with you guys." We sent in a file. It ended up getting denied, right? For additional, it was written for a repair, and there was repairability factors that had to be reviewed. And she said the adjuster was so impressed with her email, and the response was, "Hey, this file, we've made our decision here, this one's closed, but I can't wait until we work the next file. I've never had a professional email like that." And so we utilize it to learn from our mistakes. And when I say mistakes, process mistakes. What
Mm.
are we not doing? What are we not providing? What are we not thinking about? It's kind of like, if you like the trick question, if you say, "What's the brightest side of an apple?" You'll get a lot of responses, but it's simple. It's the outside, right? So it's all about how you look at it. And so we we plan on continuing to use our efforts to
Mm.
use AI to find our holes, right? Like the hole, I always think of it like holes in a boat. Everybody's got a hole in their process. They've got a hole in their boat. Eventually a boat's going to leak and going to need some maintenance. Our goal is to make sure there's not, the boat doesn't sink. So, I see a lot of companies out there. Oh, we use AI. And it's like, well, I look at it this way. Are we automated? Yes. Could we connect to a system, and could you submit a file to us from, let's just say, Job Nimbus? We have integrated a process with Job Nimbus where there's a what they call a Boolean or a checkbox where the customer can click, and that takes all the documentation that we would need, only if it's available, and put it in our system, create a file, alert our team members, fully automated.
Wow.
Um, and so I think with AI, it depends on how we use it. And I'm going to share a quote. One of our team members, her husband was at an event, and there was an IBM executive, and she shared the quote with our team. And I'm probably going to butcher it, but I'll do my best, which was, "AI will not replace humans. Humans that use AI will replace humans that don't use AI." Somewhere along that route. And I
Oh,
agree with it. I think that's because people are like, AI is dangerous. And it's like, well, so is a gun, unless it's with a police officer or, somebody protecting you. In the wrong hands,
yes.
it's a
Yes, it
weapon.
can
But
be. Yeah.
I think AI is the same way. It's dangerous, especially for this
Mhm.
industry. You can usually tell when somebody's using it. You get the long hyphens and different
Mhm.
things, and there's
Yeah.
key ways to find it. And I don't hate it. I think the insurance companies should absolutely utilize it to quantify, again, that 8 out of 10 model. Hey, they gave me 8 out of 10 things I need to actually do my job. I
Sure.
think the future is portals. I think that is going to be continued to be the way that we get rid of the junk and control the process. And I think that's something that I feel I feel like I'm missing something, because I wish there was like this standard that it's like the claim Bible or something that says, "Hey, every time that you have a storm damage project and you are submitting this file to the insurance companies, do it this way," right? This is the most effective way to get your yes and your no's.
Yeah.
That's, to me, I think that's a missing piece. Maybe it's out there, but I think some people, regardless,
I
won't
don't think
follow
it's out there.
directions. Yeah, they
I don't
don't.
think it's out there. No.
Well, even if it is, I've witnessed many many clients just refuse to give every aspect of what we ask for. And
Mm.
it's like, hey, I can only help you, help me, help you by
Sure.
giving that to me.
Sure. Yeah. So at where I work, I work for a MGA, and we use AI, but very similar to how you use AI is I use it to communicate effectively to the insured and to make sure that I don't leave anything out that's of critical importance, and to relay it in a way that's understandable to them, because I get caught in the jargon sometimes, and I gotta go, wait a second. They don't know what I'm talking about. They don't. They have no clue what. And I'll still type it out BPP to this day. And I'm like, gosh. stop. I have to stop and do that. But AI will spell everything out for me. And they'll put in parentheses like BP, business personal property, parentheses BPP. This is for your, And so I think it's a great way to communicate in in an industry that can be so stressful and overwhelming, and you have to be quick, but your insured, our policyholders, our insureds deserve a better explanation or a better update. Instead of I'm just working on your claim. Here's what I'm working on, and here's a list of what's pending. AI does all that for me, and I can send this mini report to my insured. So it is a tool. It's how you use the tool. And you're right. People who don't use the tool are going to be left behind, unfortunately, because that is where it's going. And it's just like when we had the internet, everybody uses the internet. Everyone. My children know how to unfortunately get on the internet. They're young. But it's gonna be the same type of training. Ooh, not now. My computer almost restarted. Oh my god. It's gonna be the same AI training because you have to know how to use the tool, right?
Absolutely. I think that's I get excited when somebody wants to ask me, hey, how do you use it? So I nerded out. I have a prompt um, that is named Jarvis, and I was so creative because my nickname, I guess, is Tony. So if for any Marvel nerds out there, they'll understand that connection. But the prompt, I spent a lot of time on that prompt, really focused on who I am. I mean, it's got information such as, that be yourself and originals always worth more than a copy. Just I have filled it up with as much information about myself, and I use that one specifically when I'm going through, a personal challenge to say, hey, I need a different perspective on this, and I need to look at it to be able to ask questions more effectively because I don't want to waste anybody's time. Even if I'm
Sure.
dealing with my attorney, it's not about saving dollars and being cheap and not. It's like I don't want to waste their time, so they can go and get additional business and they can use their time the right way instead of being like, man, Anthony, you could have done this on your own and spent an hour. Now I've got to spend 3 hours because I'm starting from scratch. So I think AI, if we continue to use it and learn from it, I think
Mhm.
there's so many benefits that we can gain just as people.
Yeah. No, I love that. Great question. Thank you, Alejandro.
That was a
My
great
question.
question.
Yeah. It's something that we should probably just make standard to talk about because it's going to be evolving, and it'll be fun to kind of see how it evolves and how the processes change. So, and speaking of processes, in your opinion, what makes the claim process so frustrating? Just it's a generalized question because it could be for both sides, but on your side of things, what makes it so frustrating?
Um, it's a great question. I would say most the most of the clients that we've interacted with, it's always too late, right?
Mm,
I think there's a misconception of when to prepare and how to prepare, and you know, almost every contractor I've worked with, they've got a great process, right? It's not about coming in and changing the process. It's just fine tuning. It's saying, hey, instead of this being here, put this over here, and
mhm,
it's going to be easier for everybody. But I think it really starts with the timing aspect because look, we can't predict all the time what catastrophes are going to do what, how strong a storm and a tornado can pop up and destroy a town, and there it's unfortunate with things that happen, but typically just waiting too long to implement strategies and to have a it's bottlenecks. Everybody has bottlenecks in their business, but implementing that before the bottlenecks happen
mhm.
is the hardest thing that even myself as an owner, I've fallen into that trap many times. And they say, insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I think it's that part is I think people follow old ways
Hmm.
and they're in this mindset of, oh, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And it's like, well, there's a quote of like a 65-year, marriage, and they're like, what made your marriage so successful? And they said, we came from a time when something was broken, we didn't throw it away, we fixed it, we put it back together. And we live in a different world these days where there are ways to enhance things without changing it, right?
Hmm.
I don't want to take away, somebody really wants to do things, by paper, that's fine. But why don't they do both so they can satisfy their needs and the growth, right? If you want to grow and you want people to grow with you, you've got to give things that you may not think are important, right? What may not be important to me may be
Hmm.
important to somebody else, and vice versa. Just like I guess relationships, right? If my wife said, "Hey, this makes me feel in a certain way," and I say, "Well, you shouldn't feel that way," what's my right to say you shouldn't feel that way? Instead, it's
Yeah, you're going to be with
trying
the
to
right person.
redirect that energy and say, well, what makes you feel that way? What can we
Yeah.
change? And we don't always have the answers as humans. We don't.
No, no. I would say I'm going to answer the question too because I feel like it's only fair that we have both sides of the divide. I don't want to say divide. We're not divided, but of the line. I mean, I would say makes the claims process so frustrating is processes that are in place that I can't control. I would say, and I'm not going to get into detail to that because, and it's just been everywhere I've gone. But processes, I can only do the best I can, right? And processes, I think, are ever evolving. And I know where I work, it's everywhere is ever evolving with the processes, and so it's change is adapting to change. I think is one of the it's not it's originally it's frustrating, right? The onset of change can be frustrating, and we have to keep up so we can keep up with our insurance and keep up with their needs and their requests. And sometimes it's just hard just chasing. This is I'm taking a or a left turn, but sometimes chasing them down for the information to complete their claim is probably the most frustrating piece of my process. There's so much documentation that we need to have in our file because we get, as a desk adjuster, we get audited. All adjusters, get audited to some degree, and relaying that to our insureds and to policyholders that look, I don't care what the number is. You just gotta show me the documents, show me the proof, and we can move on with the claim. And that's truly all it is. That's all it comes to. I mean, obviously, is it covered or not? Yes. But what it comes down to is here's the proof, here's my claim, and then we go covered or not, and then it's paid out. That's truly, that's all it is. Yet it's like somewhere in between. It gets so fuzzy and blurry and complicated, and coverage can be so complicated. But I do also want to pause real quick and backtrack. Alejandro asked a good question. How do you protect privacy? And through my where I work, it's closed AI. It's like just our claim system, so it doesn't get out into the world. But I think that might be a question for you, Anthony.
Well, there's a lot. There's a lady in the industry that has shared information and some details on this. Sarah Mary Parker. She's got some great um, information public that she has posted and shared about this. And I agree. You've got to be careful with what you share in AI. We should not be sharing documentation of homeowner information. We shouldn't. We have to be careful with what we share, and we are cautious from that standpoint. Ours should be more focused on the same thing that you're saying, like the communication factor of how are we responding to a problem? Because it's the same thing. If I want to curse out one of my friends and I want to say everything that's on my mind, that old school of, write an email and delete it. No, AI, right? You
Mm-hmm.
say, I'm going to express my emotions, but say it in a nice way, right? Like,
I've done that.
and look, I've had contractors and I've had adjusters where I want to bang my head against the wall. It's like I am here trying to help you, and you're just being resistant. And I think you and I spoke about this prior, was about like resistance. There's two forms of resistance. There's the I don't, I won't, I can't, I don't want to, right? And then there's the hey, help me understand how you got here. Because I use the philosophy, and I'm terrible about this because apparently this ruins it for colorblind people. But if you're not colorblind and you're in a room of just black and white, and somebody's got a red balloon, and let's just say there's 10 people sitting in a circle, you would think the person in the middle of the room with the red balloon, everybody would notice it. That's not how it works, right? We live in a day of people like that. And so even though the red balloon, sometimes you got to get right in front of somebody and say, red balloon, this is where I need you to focus. Not here, not here. Can we focus on the red balloon? And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, right. And it's the same thing with us. If an
Mhm.
adjuster says, hey, we need this or we can't move. I'll give you a quick example. I had a job recently where the contractor was upset with us because the adjuster didn't pay for 30-pound felt. And I said, look, I personally called the code office just to be sure. The adjuster was also like, the communication was great. Email communication, didn't even have to pick up the phone, emailed back and forth. And they said, hey, if you've got something to support this, well, absolutely add it because I have nothing, you have nothing. And the contractor wanted to essentially fire us. And it's like, look, you give us one job. The adjuster within 8 days had this turnaround. You had everything that you needed for incurred cost. You're upset with something that isn't a code item. We looked it up. If you've got something that they can put in the file, they'll absolutely add it. And there was nothing from there. So it's hard when you ask for simple things, like you said, to
Yeah.
complete a file. And I've got a question for you because I think
Oh.
I've asked you this prior, but this would be to anybody on listening in that is that has to receive files from contractors. Do
Mhm.
you prefer 150 page PDF all in one that you have to separate out? Or do you prefer a clearly labeled separate grouping of PDFs, meaning property measurements, estimate, photo sheet, code documents? Because that is a very wide, um,
You did
I get
ask me that too.
disturbed
Yeah.
when I see these AI companies that you can order you know, an estimate package and you get all this information and you get all your photos and you get one lump sum PDF. And I'm looking at that like, if I'm an adjuster, you're going on the bottom of my pile for that day. I'm taking the job that comes in complete, the one that lights up my 10 light bulbs above my head, whatever, that
Mhm.
mentality. So I would ask you what, and like I said, the audience out there, how do you prefer to receive a file? One lump sum PDF or clearly labeled separate PDFs?
Yeah. Clearly labeled separate PDFs. That's one of our clients. That's how they send me documentation, and boy, it it makes things easier for me. I get why people lump sum things. I get it's easy to do from Exactimate. It's easy to bundle a macro and send it off. And I can appreciate the simplicity sometimes. But for large, I handle all complex claims, and I need separate documentation to be able to absorb everything that's coming at me. So I need my photos, I need my estimate. I need AI sometimes. I get AI to summarize the report sometimes. I mean, yes, I read my bread and butter, but I use that technology to, I don't want, someone said I don't want 10 documents. So that's torn. There you go. I don't want 10 documents. Um, I do like all of the invoices and bundled in one document. I like my report, my estimate, my photos, and then supporting documentation all bundled together. So that's, it's four or five, include the invoice. Um, but yeah, no, that's a great question. So is that something that you guys do? Tell me about that.
So, we designed something that creates a photo sheet that makes it very clear, simple, and size to where it's not going to be rejected. It's going to be easy for an adjuster to review. We think of it like storytelling. We want it to be as simple as possible. When you look at what we send you, it's check, 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 no, check, 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 no. Whatever that process of elimination, when you have to dig and you have to search and you have to spend time spinning your wheels trying to figure out what's going on and what they're asking for, that helps no one. So when we try to organize the information and help our contractor clients know, like, hey, the more clear and organized you are, the easier it's going to be to just your path of direction, right? Not every file is going to be perfect, and there's going to be a percentage of jobs where they go out and they inspect and they think there's damage and there's just not damage, or the adjuster comes out and says, hey, you have roofers that will try to find one shingle and they're like, it's discontinued, you got to pay for the whole roof, and you're like, it doesn't just
Um,
work like that. Like,
yeah.
maybe there are certain things that do work like that, but I think in all reality, it's just about organization. And most of these contractors that I work with, they want that and they're
Mhm.
trying to get there. But it's especially when they're large scale, when they're massive companies, changing one thing, and you guys see it on your side, right? If State Farm wanted to roll out a new change, it's not like they can say one thing, click a button, and it's done. I mean, that
Yeah.
takes time, and that takes steps and levels of implementation that I couldn't imagine from that scale. So contractors, whether they're doing a few projects a month to thousands or hundreds, whatever the numbers are, it becomes difficult to monitor all of those. But if they have a solution to this part of the puzzle. The data, what I love about the data that we have, it's not to use it. I don't go public with my data and say, oh, X insurance company does this or that. We look at it from a timing piece, is how much time are they spending
Mhm.
getting information multiple times? Because if a job goes on hold for a week because it doesn't have pictures that was required day one, it's like, why? I don't know. It's like you're already out there. You're meeting with the adjuster, do your inspection, have your conversations, know what the conversations, know what you need. Don't come back for weeks and keep driving back, because then the homeowner gets confused. And then the
Sure.
homeowner's calling the insurance company. Should I do this? Should I do that? Like,
Mhm.
I feel for you all, because I know what the resistance we get just trying to help contractors, and to be an adjuster that deals with a contractor that doesn't care or doesn't really pay attention to those things, you guys are dealing with the homeowner and you're dealing with the contractor. So, if we can make your life a little bit easier from our services and what we try to help contractors with, I would love that. That just,
Well,
to me,
I'll
that
ask you,
satisfies things.
why would someone hire you?
Great question. I think it's really to, if they care about their time and their
Mhm.
administrative duty time and just overall, quality of life, I think whether it's me or a service like me that is focused on interacting, being able to come and talk to people on the other side, have mentors that are on the carrier side that say, hey, don't let contractors do this to you. Don't let adjusters do this to, finding that center ground that says, look, I work for everyone, right? My goal is anybody we interact with, we want to make sure that we're doing our part. Because if we're doing our part and we are consistent with our part, I think that's the people say insurance is consistently inconsistent, and I agree with that. But it's not. It's
I
not.
agree with it
It's
too.
not just one side here. That this is.
Mhm.
I mean, even homeowners can be difficult in the process. When I started, uh, working for a contractor, I still remember picking up a check one day and the guy put it down for a down payment for his wife's BMW. And I had that awkward conversation, like, hey,
Oh,
I'm calling my office, like, what do I do? It was like a $7,000 check. They had no clue. They just went out and decided to spend some insurance proceeds on, I guess, the wife's new BMW. And, when you hear horror stories like that, it's, like I said, from the adjuster standpoint, I hope for your guys' sake that contractors that don't want to follow basic, simple things find ways and find leaders within the industry that can really make that impact. I think there's some great trainings. I've really seen a change with manufacturers and distributors focusing more on tips on how to do things right versus how to be resistant. I don't think any of them teach that. And I think the more the industry gets rid of the people that are trying to create a false path or a false narrative is going to help us all. I think Stephen Badger's comment of, he tells his clients to hang up on, supplemental
Mm-hmm.
companies like myself. Hearing some of the stories I've heard over the last few years, I
Mm-hmm.
really don't blame them, but I'm hopeful that companies like myself can change that and, can show that, hey, we've worked with contractors that have zero experience, and we've worked with contractors that, are top in the industry, and we can make an impact, whether it's a small contractor or a large contractor. And if that helps the adjusters, you know, appreciate seeing our name on that side, I would hope that,
Yeah.
the more they see us, the more they try to talk about, hey, Mr. Contractor, you need to go find a solution like this that really
Mm-hmm.
helps focus on what is now and what is coming down the pipeline.
Sure. No, that's a great answer. And we talked a little bit about leaders in the industry. What leaders are you seeing that are promoting change for the positive?
Man, I did not expect that one. I
Sorry,
will
and that's
say,
okay. It's okay if you don't.
oh no, it's there's somebody I've been interacting with over the last few months. He was referred to me. His name is Jonathan Brose. It just has gave me some different perspectives that I haven't seen and I haven't heard. Even, I mean, him has talked to me out of some of the ways that we do things, just in a good way, right?
Okay. Yeah.
He had a process that he implemented in one of his roofing companies that just I had never heard it before, and I really liked it because it was a different way to do exactly what we're trying to do,
Mm-hmm.
and he did it from a contractor standpoint, and no wonder he's advanced to where he is now. And I'm excited to continue to interact with him and learn from him because he has changed the scope of thinking when it comes to how to apply our solutions to contractors.
I love that. I will look him up. You have to share his name with me, and I will a profile, LinkedIn profile, so I can look him up. Now, I just thought of that off, on the whim, and figured you would know. So we are getting down to the wire, but I wanted to ask you, what are some of the trends that you're seeing in besides AI? Because we discussed that. What trends are you seeing in the insurance industry that you like to continue to see?
Innovation. I think that uh, everybody has. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, but anybody that's ever watched a Gary V video, he had this thing about Toys R Us, innovate or die. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very critical that we continue to think where we're going versus where we are, because where we are, we have had some difficulties moving. There's no doubt about it. The relationships between contractors and carriers have been fractured for as long as I feel like I've seen. I think it started with like I forgot what year it was. I looked this up and I'm like, holy crap, it's been that fractured since. And I had this idea. I was like, I'd love a trade show that brought everybody together, meaning
Yeah.
contractors and carriers. And I called it like the bro mentality, but I need to find a better word because that's not really like politically correct. But instead of like the handshake like this, it's like the, hey, bring it in. And like for me, I would love to be able to sit at a round table of people from all sides and
Mm-hmm.
hear the worst and the best of everything, because there's always a solution in the room. And I think innovating or innovative ideas and AI solutions, I think I'm going to give them a shout out. Borelli has a pretty neat tool that they're developing that is specifically around AI and really eliminating some of the headaches of I would say we talked about it earlier, right? The dirty words of public adjusting and
Yeah.
supplementing. It's a tough word on your end to have to deal with, and it's because they lack process. I think process is the reason why relationships in this industry is broken and fragmented. And I
Yeah.
think if we find innovative solutions to bridge that gap, I think that's what brings the relationships a little bit more closer, because then the more transparency there is and connectivity, I think the more we can get through the stuff we can't control and the things we can't see.
And how sorry.
You don't
We
have to
are going a
apologize.
little over. How do we what is a good solution to bring this to bring those two sides together? Well, it's multiple sides, but it's the carriers, it's the public adjusters, it's the contractors, and then there's you that's kind of in the middle. How do we bring all these people together? Is it by doing this? Is it on LinkedIn? Is it showing up to conferences? Because I say this every time when I go to conferences, I can tell you I don't see a lot of field adjusters there. I,
I agree.
I do see public adjusters. They do come out. They come out of the woodworks, and they come to these conferences. But it's going to take everyone, not just the leaders. It takes the people that are in the field, people that are in the trenches, to make change and to have these conversations with the public adjusters, contractors, and then you in between
I
to
think you're
bridge that.
spot on. I mean, this show, right? Your podcast gave me a chance to be able to speak to the other side and speak with the other side. It's something. This is the first time somebody, I guess, people can see it publicly. I talk about the people I speak with behind closed doors, and I would love more of this. I think this is important for us to, we're all capable of agreeing to disagree and finding, again, a solution's always in the room. When you have people in a room that disagree that there's always a solution in the room, they're probably the wrong people to be leading those conversations. So I think it's we got to work together to continue to push the bad out. And like I said, I really believe Stephen Badger's words when he says,
Mm.
"Hey, he's committed to getting rid of, the good and bad." I see him and Chip Merlin's posts, and I love reading the things because
Oh yeah, me
they're
too.
they're not being combative, but they're bringing up points to, bring conversation and bring awareness, and which leads to change. Because once you have conversations and there's awareness, people create problems, and then you have people that create problems, and you have people that create solutions. And the
Create
more
solutions.
that we stop focus on creating problems and focus more on creating solutions, I think that's where we'll have that, like, over the hump. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm hopeful I see it before I leave this industry.
Yeah, I think we're coming on to change, and I personally, for me, I kept complaining about the industry back. I guess I would say I kind of got fed up after Hurricane Ida. Hurricane Ida in Louisiana. It was Louisiana, hit Louisiana 21, actually August 29th, 2021. And shortly after that, I started noticing, I guess I was more aware of it, just the lack of knowledge starting at the agent level, which we didn't even that's a whole nother episode. We can talk about the agents that deal with the claims. And then I started getting frustrated. I started seeing things that made me frustrated. PAs made me frustrated. The contractors, they just want more money, more money, more money, or they want more, 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 and we're trying to give them more, but we can't give them more, but maybe we could, like all of these things. And so instead of complaining about it and just sitting in my office just pouting, I did something about it, and I did this. I finally came around and did this. But what people can do, just ordinary day-to-day people, they can increase their knowledge. Learning is power. Knowledge is power. And we have continuing education, and this isn't a plug, but I guess I'm making it a plug. Continuing education is not just something to check off your box every year, 2 years, whatever your requirements are. It truly is continuing your education in the sense of things change, you have more to learn, you never stop learning. So, yeah, you can get your adjuster hour credit, go to Adjuster Pro, get your CE credits online, and you can save 10% with Adjuster Hour 10. But going to the conferences and talking to other people and meeting them face to face, it's really hard to argue with a public adjuster face to face at a neutral ground, like a conference where we're all just trying to do something here. And so by doing that, you may not feel like it, but you are making a change, and that's going to have great effects. We just need more people to do it, and not, I don't know if they get discouraged. I don't know if it's like, I don't know, financial. I don't know if it's like logistically, but there's so much out there. There's local chapters you can go to. There's state events you can go to. It's just getting more involved. So with that being said, Anthony, thank you so much for coming on Adjuster Hour today. I appreciate you so much. This was a great conversation, and I won't be back for a month. We don't have Adjuster Hour until July 10th with Mr. Greg Golson. That's going to be great. Greg actually knows one of my mentors, my trainers. Just so happens we met on LinkedIn, Greg and I sent him some Mardi Gras stuff. And sure enough, he's from Louisiana. Good thing I sent him like the mud pies. They throw like little mud pies, whatever. Because I actually hate the mud pies. So I was like, I don't know, he might like mud pies. Anyway, he loved it. So we connected, and then sure enough, he actually knew my mentor. He went to school with her since like middle school. So Mr. Greg will
Small
be
world.
on. Yeah, it is a small claims is a small world. So that being said, Anthony, hang tight, don't leave just yet. But I want to tell everyone bye. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you. Well, actually, we'll see you July 10th, Greg, everyone here. But join me in Dallas. What day is that? July, I think it's July 11th in Dallas. So if anyone's near Dallas, Texas, please, please, please come out to the Rodeo Bar. You can RSVP on LinkedIn and meet in person. All right, talk soon. Okay, I'm ending